talk about the Steelers and why I believe they're in the toughest situation right now in the NFL. We could talk about the New York Giants and other teams in the NFL. At least they know that they're bad. They have a chance to go out there and possibly get a franchise quarterback in the first round. When you look at the Steelers historically, especially underneath Coach Tomlin and Coach Bill Cowher. Bill Cowher did have some losing seasons, but they were not in the conversation to be one of the worst teams in all of football. The problem that the Steelers have ran into with Coach Tomlin, you're stuck in mediocrity. You're not bad enough to go out there and have a top 5 pick, but you're not good enough to be one of the Final Four teams to be in the AFC Championship conversation. And that's where the Steelers want to be. They want to be a Super Bowl contender every single year. But right now, it's not possible. Coach Tomlin is not the same coach that he once was many, many years ago. He has not evolved with the NFL. He is still stuck with the same message that he had when he first took over as the head coach. Run the football, stop the run, control the line of scrimmage. And that's a great philosophy to have, but you have to move with the times. They do not have creative offensive minds that come in and out of this building. Coach Tomlin has hired offensive coaches such as Randy Fichtner and Matt Canada, 2 terrible offensive coordinators back to back, and now you have Arthur Smith. Arthur Smith was a solid offensive coordinator with the Tennessee Titans. We saw him with the Atlanta Falcons as a head coach. He was never meant to be a head coach in the NFL. But when you look at him with the Tennessee Titans, what did he have? A solid offensive line, a great running back in Derrick Henry, and a great wide receiver in A.J. Brown at the time. He did have Ryan Tannehill, and he got the most out of Ryan Tannehill. We have to give him credit for that. But Arthur Smith, on the back half of this previous season, he was terrible. The entire offense had no pulse, it was no creativity, and they were just horrible. And we saw Russell Wilson finish out the season. Now, when I look at Coach Tomlin, his offensive hires have been terrible, to say the least, because Matt Canada will go down as the worst offensive coordinator in Steelers history. But it's more than just that. The reason why this offense took a major step back for the last 5 games of the regular season and why you won that 5-game losing streak, it was no adjustments by Mike Tomlin. It was no adjustments by Arthur Smith. And as a head coach, you take care of the entire show. Defense, offense, and special teams. On the first half of the season, with Justin Fields and when Russell Wilson was able to come in and start some games, they looked very good. But they figured out this offense. When George Pickens went down with a hamstring injury, he missed time against the Philadelphia Eagles. They lost that matchup in a terrible way. And you lost to the Kansas City Chiefs. What do those teams have? Very good quarterback play, very good offensive coaching, and very good offensive lines at the time. The Steelers, they don't have any of that right now. The offensive coaching is below average. The head coach always gets outcoached by the top coaches in the NFL. And we saw this when Bill Belichick was still in the NFL. He always outcoached Mike Tomlin every single time. And we've seen this on a repeated basis over the last 5 to 6 years where Coach Tomlin, he gets outcoached or they will play down the competition. Now, to his credit, in the last 2 years, they have not played down the competition like how they used to many years ago. But still, they will have some losses against the Indianapolis Colts that just make you scratch your head, and the same against the Cleveland Browns. Those should be easy wins for the Steelers, but they were not easy wins. When I look at their first round picks over the last few years, they have not hit on their first round picks. And this is where I get into the conversation with Kevin Colbert. When Big Ben retired, I wish that Kevin Colbert would have retired with him because Kevin Colbert was not hitting on those first round picks. TJ Watt in 2017, amazing pick. I'm surprised that he went all the way down to being the 30th pick in the first round. He's been one of the best pass rushers in Steelers history. He's phenomenal. One of the best defensive players in the NFL. But you go with Terrell Edmonds in 2018 at the safety position. Good rotational safety at best, not a starting safety in the NFL. You go with Devin Bush in 2019. They even traded up to select him with the 10th overall pick. Now, around this time, you can make the case they need quarterback help because Big Ben, he's starting to show his age. Big Ben was still a very good quarterback. But you look at Big Ben at this time, and you're starting to say, okay, it's time to sit somebody behind Big Ben. Let's develop this quarterback. And when Big Ben retires, let's go with them. That's what the Chiefs did with Alex Smith. They knew the writing was on the wall. They got the most out of Alex Smith that they could. They brought in Patrick Mahomes. You look at the Green Bay Packers. They are historically known for this. They had Brett Favre. Let's draft Aaron Rodgers. Let's store him up there. Then we'll slide him in. When Aaron Rodgers is getting a little too old, we'll slide him out of there. Let's go get Jordan Love. That's the model that they have. And I'm not saying anytime you draft a quarterback in the first round, he's going to be a for sure hit if he sits down for a year or two. But at least try to put an option out there for Coach Tomlin. Kevin Colbert did not do that. Instead of preparing for the future, you went out there and you select picks like Devin Bush. His first year was great as a rookie. Towards ACL, he was never the same. He'll go down as a draft bust. And the same with Edmonds. Najee Harris. You should have won the offensive lineman with this pick, because not only was Big Ben aging out, your offensive line with Maurice Pouncey, Roman Foster, Andrew Villanueva, David DeCastro, those veterans, it was time to move on. And instead of drafting young talent behind them and trying to develop them, you go get a power runner and Najee Harris, who was not explosive at Alabama, and you select him in the first round because you had a problem running the football the year before with James Conner. Makes zero sense. Anytime you have a huge problem running the football and your running backs are not bad, more than likely it comes down to a couple of things. Your offensive coaching is terrible. They're not making enough plays up front to scheme in those open blocks, and your offensive line is not good enough. Or maybe your quarterback is so terrible, they're stacking the box. Not too many teams were still going out there and stacking the box against Big Ben until he hurt his elbow against the Seattle Seahawks. And even then, you saw Big Ben take those one-on-one shots to Juju Smith-Schuster, take those one-on-one shots to Deontay Johnson, and the same to Big Pat across the middle of the field at the tight end position. But going with Najee Harris in the 2021 draft class in the first round, that was a terrible decision. And then they went with Kenny Pickett. Now, I agree with this move. You finally draft a quarterback in the first round. Right idea, wrong player. And that was a bad quarterback class because that class had Kenny Pickett, Desmond Ridder, Malik Willis, Sam Howell, Brock Purdy. And Brock Purdy has been the best quarterback in that draft class by far. I was a big Kenny Pickett fan. I'm not going to run away from it. I thought that Kenny Pickett was going to be a very good quarterback option with the Steelers. I never thought that he was going to be a top 5 quarterback or a top 10 quarterback, but he could have easily found success with the Steelers, in my opinion. But who was his offensive coach? Matt Canada. And as we see with Kenny Pickett now, he's injury prone. He doesn't have the NFL arm. He's been traded numerous times. Kenny Pickett also was a backup quarterback with the Eagles, so he's a Super Bowl champion, but he's not a good starting option. So since Big Ben retired, your starting quarterbacks have been Mason Rudolph, Mitch Trubisky, Kenny Pickett, Justin Fields, Russell Wilson. The best chance to go out there and fully develop a quarterback and see if you really had a future in him was Justin Fields. And they went 4-2 with Justin Fields, and they yanked him out the lineup to push in Russell Wilson. Now, you can say that Arthur Smith is a bad OC. You can say the offensive line was terrible at certain points of times with the Steelers this year. And I'm going to give the offensive line a lot of credit moving forward when I talk about them in the next couple of minutes, because they have a lot of young talent on the offensive line that I'm excited for personally. But you look at Justin Fields. He was not a good enough passer for Coach Tomlin. And in order for you to fully open up the playbook, it may have come with turnovers. Was it the best situation with Justin Fields? No, but it had structure. They did not have that confidence in him, so they go with Russell Wilson. Russell Wilson was supposed to be the starter anyway before he hurt his calf pushing a sled. They go back to Russell Wilson against the New York Jets. He'll finish out the season. And they had an offer sheet with Justin Fields, but he walked away. He wants to play with the New York Jets. We'll see if it works out for him. Right now, you're depending on Aaron Rodgers. And I know they're depending on Aaron Rodgers because they wanted to bring back Russell Wilson. They can sign him right now. He's a free agent. Russell Wilson is available to sign with any team, but he wants to come back. He wants to play in the PA. He wants to play with Coach Tomlin. He likes playing with Coach Tomlin. There was a lot of reports that came out that Arthur Smith was not the biggest fan of Russell Wilson, and they clashed heads in certain meetings. A lot of that is because of this, and I do believe those reports. He had an offense that was ready with Justin Fields because Justin Fields had more mobility to him than Russell Wilson. So he could run those RPO plays, and if those plays were dead down the field because the passing concepts with Arthur Smith are not good enough, they're below average, Justin Fields can take off. You look at Russell Wilson. He doesn't have the speed that he had 5 to 6 years ago. So when Russell Wilson is holding on to the football for a very long time, he may fumble the football, Or he may just give you a shot to throw a moon ball down the field. And that doesn't work out. You're running yourself into a bad situation because he may rush himself into sacks. And the same thing happens with Justin Fields. But Justin Fields just had more explosiveness to his game with his legs. Russell Wilson's still a better passer. Now, when we get into this discussion, Aaron Rodgers, in my opinion, is a better player. I said this 2 weeks ago. But the best option for the Steelers is Russell Wilson. Less baggage. He's easier to coach. You don't have to worry about him going on Pat McAfee's show every single week. And he already has a rapport with DK Metcalf, who he played with the Seattle Seahawks. And he has George Pickens, who he got to play with last season. And George Pickens had over 900 receiving yards playing with Russell Wilson and playing with Justin Fields. The problem is this. Aaron Rodgers is a better player right now because he can get the football out quicker. He's more accurate in the intermediate routes. The only difference is this. Russell Wilson is more mobile than Aaron Rodgers. But Aaron Rodgers can still give you some good play behind the line of scrimmage if the offensive line does break down. It seems, personality-wise, it's easier to deal with Russell Wilson even though he had problems with Pete Carroll. Aaron Rodgers, he's going to bring a circus with him. And I do believe the media hates on him a little bit too much. Aaron Rodgers had a lot of problems with the general manager. He had a lot of problems with the coaching with the Green Bay Packers. He butted heads with Mike McCarthy before Mike McCarthy was eventually let go of. The general manager came out and he told Aaron Rodgers, please don't be the problem. And you know how Aaron Rodgers is going to react to that. Aaron Rodgers was pissed off when they drafted Jordan Love. He did not take that out on Jordan Love. He helped him behind the scenes. Aaron Rodgers, when it comes to playing with certain players, he's a very good locker room guy when it comes to being with the players. Front office and coaches, that's a different story. He's going to Pat McAfee's show every single week. You look at Coach Tomlin, the fact that he was not able to discipline Antonio Brown. He had problems with Deontay Johnson. He's having problems right now with George Pickens. It doesn't really shine the light on Coach Tomlin of being this leader of men in terms of going out there and disciplining players and getting them put into the right situations. Because when you're dealing with problems every single year with your staff and their personalities, and you can't manage those personalities, that's a problem. Antonio Brown was a huge problem. And I do believe Antonio Brown, he basically deceived everyone, including the fans. No one saw Antonio Brown acting the way that he's acting right now back in 2014 and 2015. They gave him his money. He became a complete crash out. They moved on from AB. They traded him away. And he has a lot of great things to say about Coach Tomlin, but they moved on from him. But you've always had problems with Coach Tomlin managing personalities. Imagine a locker room with Aaron Rodgers, DK Metcalf, and George Pickens. And I'm being serious here. I know a lot of people come out and they talk about the memes. Imagine that locker room. It can get toxic as hell. You have Aaron Rodgers yelling at wide receivers when he was with the Green Bay Packers. And that was a young wide receiving core. That's when they traded Devontae Adams. He was upset. And he's just shaking his head on the sideline. With the New York Jets, you have him coming out and telling Mike Williams, hey, if you would have stayed on the red line, that's a different story. When he threw the interception against the Buffalo Bills. Mike Williams comes over to the Steelers. He has a good connection with Russell Wilson already. And he said they stay on the red line against the Washington Commanders. He posted a picture on Instagram taking a shot at Aaron Rodgers. The reason why Aaron Rodgers doesn't have the good rapport with wide receivers and it takes 4 to 5 weeks for them to gel because he missed time in training camp. You can't have that. If he really wants to play with the Steelers, and I know that Cameron Herrick came out and says either that you want to be a Steeler or you don't, it's more than that to Aaron Rodgers. He's a weird human being, in my opinion. If you go back, you watch his documentaries on Netflix and just listen to his interviews, he's an interesting person. But Aaron Rodgers, he wants to do stuff on his time. Training camp may not work for him all the way through because he is 41 years old. He missed time with the New York Jets. And on the surface, you may say, what's the big deal? As a veteran quarterback, you put him out there, he's going to play. It's more than just that. You build a rapport with your wide receivers. You study tendencies. You do the same with your offensive line. It's more than just going out there and throwing the football deep down the field. If that was the case, Jameis Winston would be one of the best quarterbacks in the NFL. If you didn't have to build chemistry with wide receivers and tight end, if you could just go out there and play and just be accurate, a lot of quarterbacks that are very good in college, they'll be very good in the NFL. That's just not how things work. So if Aaron Rodgers wants to play in the NFL, whether it's with the Giants or the Steelers, because those are the only two teams that have given him offer sheets, he has to be all in. Aaron Rodgers is a better player. He's going to get the football out quicker. He has a deep ball steal. He can give you those 50-50 balls to DK Metcalf and George Pickens, which would be great to see. And I do believe that they could win a lot of games on the back end of the year with Aaron Rodgers than they did with Russell Wilson compared to last season. But I believe any quarterback's going to go out there and be in a better situation for this upcoming season than they were last season because they made a trade to bring in DK Metcalf and let him play with George Pickens. And this also goes into the desperation thing that I'm talking about here with the Steelers. The reason why I say they're desperate, you're depending on a 41-year-old quarterback that tore his Achilles in his first year with the New York Jets. You're hoping that he signs with your team. And you're depending on a Russell Wilson who is over the hill in terms of being a star quarterback to come in and be a quarterback for you. And you do something very rare. The Steelers, they make trades. They traded a first-round pick to bring in Minkah Fitzpatrick many years ago. And that was rare at the time. They come back a couple weeks ago, and I love this trade to bring in DK Metcalf. You trade the second-round pick for him, and then you paid him 5 years, $150 million on top of that. He hasn't even put on a Steelers jersey just yet. He hasn't even practiced for you, and you're giving him that money because you're desperate for a wide receiver to play alongside George Pickens. And I don't believe that they're going to trade George Pickens. George Pickens has to keep his head on straight. He's a talented player. The on-the-field problems are the problems with him. He doesn't have off-the-field problems. He just has dumb penalties to where he may grab a face mask of a player and drive them out of bounds, or where he gives up on a play. It's a maturity issue there with him. So if that continues to happen, you move off of George Pickens, you try to get a second or third round pick for him, and you put some more wide receivers around DK Metcalf. But DK Metcalf has also had problems on the field with his personality and his style of play in terms of just pushing cornerbacks off of him, getting frustrated, hitting cornerbacks from behind. You can't do that. You have to focus up. And you need a leader in that locker room that can bring those guys together. If you're going to bring in Aaron Rodgers, Mike Tomlin has to change everything. He has to be more disciplined. I'm not saying run your football team like it's the military. You can let grown men be grown men, but you have to be disciplined. And you have to teach these players certain things are not going to fly here. So if you bring in Aaron Rodgers, show up for all the training camp, get everything going. But it's sad to see this franchise situation that they're in. And I understand not every franchise is going to go out there and be a perennial Super Bowl contender. Only one team can win the Super Bowl every single year. Only a few teams can actually go out there and contend every single year. But the Steelers, they're good enough to go out there and win this division. They were leading this division last season into the last 5 games of the regular season. They just fell off a cliff. That's the frustrating part right now with this organization. They're good enough to a certain point, and then they just fizzle out. So hopefully adding in players like DK Metcalf, getting Aaron Rodgers if you can, or getting back Russell Wilson can help out that situation there. And when I go back to the first round pick discussion, the fact that you have been able to hit on your last 4 first round picks says a lot. And I look at Broderick Jones. He has not been a good player just yet. He's not playing his natural position at the tackle position. There's still upside there with Broderick Jones, but so far he has been terrible. And Dan Moore Jr. wasn't too much better. And he just went to the Tennessee Titans. 5 years, $82 million. So they need Broderick Jones to pan out. Remember 6 or 7 minutes ago when I said I'm going to give a lot of credit to the offensive line? They have a young core. You have Broderick Jones, I'm not the biggest fan of. But you speak of him, he's a young player. But you have Troy Fautanu. Troy Fautanu played a lot of good snaps before he got injured with a dislocated knee injury. I think he could be a star right tackle. Mason McCormick, very good right guard. Zach Frazier was a very good center, and he was not supposed to be the starting center. He's very good. And Isaac at the left guard position. So the offensive line, they're young, but they're developing. And when I look at certain situations here, the run game would have been better. Najee Harris was just too slow coming out of the backfield. We saw what Jaylen Warren was able to do. I don't think that Jaylen Warren is an every down back because he's dealt with injuries and he just can't take the physical abuse that Najee Harris' body can take because Najee Harris is bigger. But having a backfield with Jaylen Warren and Kenneth Gainwell, I like it on paper. You still need to draft a running back. Go with Ollie Gordon in the 4th or the 5th round if he's available. Out of Oklahoma State University, who the Steelers really like. Go with him. He's a big bruising power back. In short yard situations, get him the football. You don't need to prioritize your running back in this division because you have so many holes with this team on the offensive end. But this is an offense that needs a lot of juice to be pumped into it. So whether you go with Aaron Rodgers, I know it's not the most exciting option, or you go with Russell Wilson, you should still draft a quarterback. You don't have a second round pick, but look at the first round. What can you do? This is a weak quarterback class because you have Shedeur Sanders, you have Cam Ward. Those are the top two guys. And I don't see Shedeur Sanders falling all the way down to the Steelers. So now we get into open territory. Jackson Dart, do you want to select him in the first round? Because if you don't go quarterback in the first round, you could go offensive line or you can go defense to help out your secondary. But I look at the quarterback room here. Jackson Dart, I don't think he's a terrible quarterback. You do have to be conscientious when you take quarterbacks in the first round from Ole Miss. Look at Matt Corral, who's not a first round pick, but Matt Corral was not a good quarterback in the NFL, even though he hurt his foot his rookie season. In practice, he did not look good. Chad Kelly, he did not work out in the NFL, Ole Miss system. You look at Jackson Dart, he had some big time moments. Even if you do take a quarterback in the first round, they're not going to play because you have that veteran right there waiting. You have the veteran ready to play week 1, which makes me think if you don't take a quarterback in the first round, rounds 3 and 4, do you want to go with someone like a Jalen Milroe who they just had dinner with? I'm not a big fan of Jalen Milroe. He's more so of an athlete than he is a quarterback. And remember this, Coach Tomlin has not developed a quarterback just yet. Big Ben was already here when he took the job. Big Ben was a very good quarterback coming out of college, but Bill Cowher did the developing with him. Bruce Arians helped develop him also as an offensive coordinator. Bruce Arians handled majority of those meetings when Coach Tomlin first came into the building. Give Coach Tomlin credit for going out there and winning that Super Bowl against the Cardinals, but let's just be real here. Bruce Arians was there helping Big Ben majority of the time. And you look at Bruce Arians, he was a very successful head coach with the Buccaneers and with the Arizona Cardinals. So can he develop a quarterback like Jalen Milroe who has terrible accuracy? I don't think that he can. But this is a bad situation for the Steelers in terms of trying to find that signal caller, and that's what they need right now. When I look at their defense is going to always be solid because you have Coach Tomlin. He's a very good defensive mind with Coach Austin. You have TJ Watt, like I mentioned before, great defensive player. Alex Highsmith is a very good player in his own right. Patrick Queen, very good linebacker to have in the interior with Cole Holcomb. And you have Peyton Wilson, and you have Malik Harrison on the outside also. Cameron Hayward is getting older, but this man continues to be one of the best defensive tackles in all of football. He just had 8 sacks last season, and he's very good against stopping the run. And you have Keanu Benton waiting right there. Hopefully, he can take over for when Cameron Hayward does eventually retire. I'll look at the cornerback situation. Joey Porter Jr., very good cornerback. It's the penalties that hold him back, but besides that, I like his playmaking ability. Benny Bishop is a very, very good nickel cornerback. And then you have Darius Slay. Now, Darius Slay, I'm not the biggest fan of the signing because I've seen the Steelers do this in the past. They signed Joe Hayden. He had a couple of good years with the Steelers, but he was behind his prime in terms of going out there and being a true number 1 cornerback. He'll even be a true number 2 in this division because let's just be honest here. In this division, the AFC North, you have the guard T. Higgins, Jamar Chase, Rashad Bateman, Zay Flowers. You also have Jerry Jeudy to worry about. You have a lot of wide receiving talent in this division. I look at Darius Slay, no disrespect. He's not the same player that he was with the Detroit Lions. He's not the same player that he was in year number 1 with the Philadelphia Eagles. So you're getting another cornerback that's behind his prime. I don't hate the signing, but it's not this great signing either. As a rotational corner, it can work out for you. That's how they used him with the Philadelphia Eagles in the back half of the season. They didn't always just place him out there number 1 guy. They had Cooper DeJean and they had Quinion Mitchell. They knew it was time to move on. They got younger there. So if you're going to have a rotation of Corey, Darius Slay, Joey Porter Jr., Benny Bishop, I like it. And Micah Fitzpatrick, don't get me started. He's one of the best safeties in football. He's still a top 3 safety in my opinion. Even when he's not racking up interceptions, his mere presence on the field, quarterbacks just don't throw his way. And I do believe that they should play him further back from the line of scrimmage. Because a lot of those deep passes, you could wipe that away if you have Micah Fitzpatrick watching over top of Joey Porter Jr. if he gets beat over the top. And he can crouch down over the middle of the field on tight ends and on those crossing routes. So he's a great safety to have. The Steelers, they have talent. But they're in one of the worst spots right now because especially if you can't win with Aaron Rodgers, if you can't win with Russell Wilson coming back, and you have DK Metcalf and George Pickens, something has to change. And I said this 2 years ago. It's not me being disrespectful towards Coach Tomlin. I think he's an amazing regular season head coach, but sometimes both sides can benefit. You look at what the Eagles did. They let Andy Reid go. And he went to the Kansas City Chiefs. And now you look at him. He's in one of the best situations in the NFL. And look at the Eagles. They've been okay. The Steelers, they don't want to fire coaches, but sometimes you have to do something crazy to go out there and just have a different result. And I know the Chicago Bears, they fired Lovie Smith. They've been in purgatory since then. It happens. It's not a true guarantee they go out there and they fire Coach Tomlin, that they're going to be one of the best teams in the NFL over the next 5 years, but you have to do something. It's better than being stuck in the same spot over and over and over again. Now, if they go out there one season, and it's a top quarterback class, and they trade up in the first round, and they draft a quarterback, and you truly develop them, we're talking about a different ball game here. But I'm not saying fire Coach Tomlin because he's a terrible head coach. I feel like that's what a lot of people are trying to say about Coach Tomlin now. He's not terrible. The problem is this organization, they're just stuck right now with him. And I don't see brighter days ahead unless something drastically changes. But hopefully bringing in the pieces that they brought in, and Omar Khan being the brand new general manager, over the last couple of years, and hopefully moving forward, they could pump some more life in this organization. But let me know in the comment section below, how do you feel about the Steelers moving forward with Coach Tomlin? And will it be time to move on if they cannot win a playoff game for this upcoming season? If you're new to the channel, hit the subscribe button. If you like the video, hit the like button. Most importantly, want each and every last one of you guys to stay safe, stay positive. Thanks for the video, guys. God bless. Peace.